Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of 3D Prototyping in Unity. My name is Kasanas. In the last episode, we took care of our idle animation. We have a variety of idle animations that our character will go through, giving us some variety while our player is sitting on the screen. In today's episode, I'd like to take a look at our walk animation. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so last episode we took care of our idle and it was working pretty good. Now we did have an error in it. Let's just get this guy to shift his weight and we'll see it. We're kind of seeing some motion down here in the feet, particularly when he actually shifts his weight and goes into the idle on the other side. You can see that motion there. You can see the wiggling going on. Now, some of you are looking at your animation right now going, that's not what I did. I didn't make that kind of animation. So before we actually go into the walk animation, I want to take a look at how we fix that idle. Okay? If you guys go to your character, go to your model, click on your character, and go to the animation tab. If you look at your animation tab, you're going to see this thing that says anim compression, and it's going to have something in here that says like keyframe reduction or something like that. If we take a look at our animator, our animation window with our character chosen, we can see that down here we do not have a key on every single frame. When we imported this object, if you followed along with the other episode where we imported this object, in the other series, if you followed along there, you'll know that you actually put a key on every single frame, right? We actually burn in a key on every single frame, and when we bring it into Unity, Unity gets rid of several of those keys. It goes through and it actually culls several of the keys to make it cleaner, is what it thinks. Now, what that actually does is make your animation worse. It allows some slippage and everything else to occur within there. If you're not seeing this on your actual screen, then don't do this process. But if you are, then we're going to switch this up. All right, so you're going to go to your custom player. Sorry, not your custom player. You're going to go back to your project. You're going to go to your Minecraft character, and you're going to go to the animation window. Down here in the anim compression, make sure you go from whatever it is currently to off. And scroll down afterwards and hit apply. Now, when I do so, when I go back and I take a look at the animation now, there is a key on every single frame. All right, and that's what I want to see. If I hit play now, we'll get my character to switch sides hopefully pretty quickly here. Switch it up, dude. You can see that this is a lot more solid. Even right here, it looks a lot more solid. My character's feet are not slipping or sliding or anything right now. All right, as soon as he shifts his weight, shift your weight for me, please. Shift your weight. There we go. You can see I am not getting any motion down here now at all. Okay? No motion at all down there. And that's what you want. That's what you animated in Maya, and that's what you want to see here. Now, one last thing as well. Several people are asking me why the character's hand is bent like this. And in all honesty, it's because I'm lazy. Later on, we're going to put a sword in this character's hand. The sword's going to come sticking out like this. The weight of the sword's dragging his arm down slightly, and that's why I just bent it like that. If I hadn't been so lazy, I would have gone in and I would have created an idle animation with a sword and without a sword, and they both would have been separate and they would have looked fine. But because I'm so lazy, I just left the idle like that. Alright, so anyone who's wondering about that, that's the reason why his hand is bent funny. Alright guys, so let's take a look at the actual walk animation. Okay, so for our walk animation, all the animation's already been broken up. We already know this. Looking at our actual character, we already broke up all the animation along here. And I've just got to find our player walk. Land, run, shift, shift, walk. All right, this is our player walk. What I'm going to do is with my custom player selected, I'm going to go to my animator screen, and this is the animator that we had. This is the animation state machine we had previously. We had our idle in here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my player walk. Was it this one? No, it's this one. I'm going to grab my player walk, and I'm going to drag it, and I'm going to drop it in place. Okay, just simply drag it and drop it in place. Let's make ourselves a little bit more room over here. Unfortunately, this is going to be a tad tight. All right. Let's take a look in here. We're going to clean this up again later, so let's move all this out of the way for now. Now, basically what we want to happen is we want our player, if they are going to go in the walk state, we need a transition to be able to move into that walking state. All right, so I'm going to go over here to my parameters. I'm going to make sure my parameters tab is selected, and I'm going to add a plus, and I'm going to add a float. We're going to use something that we're going to call, let's just call it walk float. It doesn't really matter what we call it. A walk float, and that's going to be used to transition from one location to the other. Okay? Now basically, we want to be able to transition from our player walk back into our initial state. That's what we really want to do. So I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to say make transition to player idle left. I've chosen player idle left as my default state. Let's put this in the middle for now. Well, no, let's not. Let's put it over here. I'm going to transition from my player walk to my idle. So whenever I'm walking and I'm no longer walking, I want to immediately move into my player idle left. Okay? I'm going to right click on this transition and I'm going to make a couple of changes in this screen right here. First of all, I'm going to make sure there's no exit time. All right? What we basically want to happen is as long as our player is pushing a button, we want our character to continue walking forward. Okay? So I'm going to go there right away. I'm going to drag this down. I always do this. I always like to set up my transitions so they're relatively quick. Now, we're going to switch out of our walk, from our walk to our actual idle under particular circumstances. First of all, what I want to do is I want to make sure that my walk value, if it's greater than a certain value, I'm going to shift to my walk, and if it's less than a certain value, I'm going to immediately shift to my idle. Okay, so in this situation where I'm going from walk to idle, I've clicked on my idle state, or my transition state, excuse me, my transition right there, and I'm going to go into the conditions, and I'm going to add a brand new condition, all right? And that condition is if my walk float is greater than the value of, let's say, 0.1 for now. We can always go through and make a change later on. Okay, so that takes care of us going from our walking state to our idle state. Now, there's a kind of a problem here because we want to be able to go from our idle, any idle state, to our walking state. Now, in some circumstances, I'd say, oh, we could just use our any state. But that's not going to work. That would work right now because from any of these states, we can go to our walk state. But later on, when we're actually adding our run, our jump, and whatever else we're going to add, we're not going to want to be set to the any state. All right, we're not going to be able to want to transition from our falling to our walk ever. So we can't actually use any state, which means we're going to have to create a number of transitions from each and every one of our existing states that we can travel from. So we know that we can go from our player idle to our player walk. I'm going to click it. I'm going to right click, make transition. I'm going to drag it. And I'm going to drop it. I'm going to click on that little arrow that I just created. And I'm going to immediately turn off my has exit time. Once again, I don't want to exit after a certain amount of time. I do want to exit pretty quickly, so I'm going to change my transition so it's relatively quick. Now, there are a number of conditions. There's going to be, at least, not right at the very current moment. There's a number of conditions where we're going to want to change from our idle state to our walk state. Currently, the only one we have, I'm going to click on this blue arrow. I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to add in my plus. And I actually screwed that other one up before. This one, I screwed up. Should be if walk is less than 0.1. Okay, if it's less than 0.1, we're going to go from idle to walk. If it's greater than 0.1, so if our walk float is greater than 0.1, then we want to go to our walk state. And I want to create the exact same transition from each and every one of these. So for my player, shift left, I'm going to right click, make transition, add it, click on this, turn this off, drag it back, clickety, drag that back so it's a nice quick transition. I'm going to add a condition, which is if my walk float is greater than 0.1. I want to make sure these are all the same. Same thing for this one, right click, make transition, bam, click on it, and I'm going to drag it back and turn off my has exit time, add my plus, add my walk float to be greater than 0.1, and lastly, bang, click on this one, right click, make transition to my player walk. Once again, click on this, drag this guy back, drag it there, turn off that, and add my condition, which once again is walk float is greater than 0.1. Okay? And this is kind of how we're going to get there. So right now, I've got it set up so that if at any time our player is in any of the idle states and our player pushes the walk button, our character is going to transition into the walk state. Okay? Now, though this would actually work and it would operate just as we want it to, I don't like it. I don't like the way this looks. This looks very messy, and as we add additional states, this is going to look more and more messy. All right, so the next thing I want to do is clean up this state machine, and it's not going to be hard to do. Let me just shift this stuff around a bit, just so we can grab it easier. What I want to do, I'll just leave it like that for now. What I want to do is I want to right click anywhere within the gray. All right, I'm going to right click. And when I do so, this new pop-up window shows up, and I've got a number of different options. But what I want to do is create a sub-state machine. When I click on it, it's going to create this brand new state. And unlike the other states with these square kind of rounded corners, this one has pointed corners, indicating that it's actually a substate of the base layer. We're currently in the base layer. All right, I can click on this and I can go through and I can change the name. Let's change the name of this substate to idle substate. It doesn't matter what you guys call it, just call it something that you can identify later on. Okay, so that's my idle substate layer. All right, what I can do now is I can grab all 4 of these idle states and I can drag them over top of my substate. And you can see what I do over here. I've got just my arrow. As I drag it over the substate, I get a little tiny plus sign. Okay, if I let go, the states themselves disappear. I've lost the substates, the states that were in the state machine, and they are currently all located in my idle substate. All right, you can see the transitions from each of those states are included here. So I'm able to still go from my player walk to inside to my idle left if walk float is less than 0.1. I've also got a number of these conditions. You can see them right here. I have 4 conditions from idle right, shift left, and idle left. From each of these, I have a condition that allows me to go in and switch from the idle state into the walk state. They're not exactly the same. I can go in and adjust these later on, but it doesn't really matter for now. If I actually want to see what's inside of that substate, I can double click on it. And everything in here is a little bit screwed up right now. So let's kind of drag everything around so it's nice and neat again. Back the way we had it. Alright, let me see. Player shift. Base layer we'll put over here. Now, there's a number of different ways to do this. If I've done it the way that you see here, I end up with all of these connections to, let me just drag this like this, there we go. Let's do it like that. All right, what you can see within this, let's actually move this up here too. All right, what we can see here is this substate. This substate is still kind of ugly. It still kind of looks ugly in here. Right now, there's a lot of arrows going in different ways, and you have a number of different options. I have opted to have everything go to this base layer. It's going up into a very particular node in the base layer. If I click on this right here, we can see that we've got our player going from our idle left to our player walk. All right, sorry. This one here, from our idle left to our player walk. We can see we've got that going, and each one of these are the same. Each one of these are going to a very particular location. However, if I did not want to do it this way and I wanted to clean this up a little bit, I could, if I want to, remove any of the transitions from the base layer, from the idle back to the base layer. That's what's causing a lot of this ugliness. And I could have all of these go to the exit instead of that base layer. I'm not going to go into that right now, but basically we'll go into it later on when we actually do the run. I think we'll do it like that for the run. But for now, we're going to leave it like this. So inside of this substate, it's still not extremely pretty. It's still a little bit ugly, but our base layer is at least very much cleaned up. We can see up here in the breadcrumb exactly where I am. I'm currently in the idle substate layer. If I want to go back to my base layer, I can simply click on the little arrow, and here I am back in my base layer, where all I've got is my idle substate and my player walk. Okay, so with that set up, now we require the code to allow us to be able to actually make the character walk when we tell it to. All right, let's take a look at that code. Okay, the code itself is very straightforward. There's only a handful of lines of code that we need to have this character start to walk. The walking itself is going to be treadmill. We're not going to move off of our little block that we've got here, our block of sand. We're going to treadmill walk on the block, and all that's really to do is show off the animation. Now, I've given you guys a character here. None of the animation is very strong. Go through, and if you're using this, make sure you've got some strong animation. All right, so all the animation I did was pretty quick here, really used for very, very quick applications. Now, if we take a look at this, what we're going to use is we're going to use the W and the S key to have our character move forward. If the player presses either the W or the S key, the character is going to start to walk. The player is going to start to walk. All right, that corresponds with, if we go to Edit and we go to Project Settings and Input, that corresponds with the vertical axes. Before we looked at the horizontal axes we used to control our camera, and the vertical axes is what we're going to use to control whether or not our player is walking. It corresponds to the down and the up keys and the S and the W keys. And just like the horizontal axes, the negative value, the negative button, the S button in this case, will give you a value between -1 and 0, and the positive will give you a value between 0 and 1. So if you actually have animation where your character walks backwards, you might want to use the S key, and if they walk forward, you want to use the W key. Okay, so with that in mind, let's take a look at the code. Go to your player, go to your character, scroll down until you find the player controller, double click it, and get your error, of course, because I'm recording. Let's open that again. We'll get this player controller script. Now, last week we didn't do a whole lot in here, or last episode we didn't do a whole lot in here. All we did is set up everything for our actual animation for the idle. To change it for the walk, we're going to add a couple of different things in here. Let's go up here and we're going to add a float that we'll call move. All right, and it's just going to be a private float. We don't really care too much about it. We're going to call it move. And down in the update, let's go below. Let's go right about here in our update. Down in our update, what we're basically going to do is we're going to have a value for move. Move is going to be equal to the input that the player gives us. The input dot get axes, and this is exactly the same thing we did with our actual camera rotation. Get axes will look for particular keys. In this case, we're going to look for our vertical. Oh, got to spell it right or it won't work. Vertical axes. All right, and it's going to put the value in move. Now, because we're using get axes and not get axes raw, it's going to give us a value between -1 and 1. Any real value between -1 and 1. Okay, now basically what we want to do, we want to take that value of move and we want to put it into the, you could do this all in one line, but I'm not going to. We want to take that value of move and we want to put it into the, or give it to the animator. Our animator, let's go back and take a look for 1 second. Our animator, if I click on animator, has this walk float value, and that's how we go from one substate, or from the substate to the walk, or from the walk back to the idle. All right, and basically what we want to do is we want to give that parameter a value so that we can make our transition between either state. Okay, to do that, very easy. We've already got ourselves our player anim here. This is our reference to our animation, and we want to go player anim dot, and we want to set a float value. All right, which float value do we want to set? We called it walk float. And what do we want to set it to? We want to set it to our move value. Okay, now that's all the code that we're going to require. Let me file save that. File save. And let's go back to our game for a minute here. And I'm going to hit play. And when I do, our character's in the idle state. And when I press down the W key, our character is going to start walking. Now, how it transitions is going to be up to you, basically how you've set up your transition to work. And when you let it go, it'll transition back into your idle. Okay, if I hit the S key, however, nothing happens. The reason why nothing happens when I hit the S key is because we're only looking for, let's go back to our code. In this line of code, we're only setting a positive value, right? We're only setting move to our get axis. Our positive value is the only thing that's going to set this thing moving. If move is between, or is greater than, if we click on this, if move is greater than 0.1, our character starts to walk. All right, so now if our actual player presses the S key, nothing happens in my case. I don't have a backwards animation, so nothing's actually going to happen. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm only going to look at the absolute value of this vertical movement. All right, so whether they press the W or the S key, I'm only going to get a value between 0 and 1. To do so, all I'm doing is clicking in front of move, right here, and sorry, after the equal sign in front of move, and instead I'm going to say math f dot, it's supposed to be capital M, math f dot abs is what I'm going to do, and that's going to give me the absolute value. I'm going to put this entire thing in brackets, bang and bang, and that is going to give me the absolute value of walk. So now when I say file save, and we go back to our game and I hit play, play. All right, now I hit W, my character walks forward, I let go, I go back to my idle, I hit S, my character is walking. Okay, and that's basically all I want to do for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you are all caught up. I hope you are moving along really well. I look forward to seeing what you guys have created as well. All right, if you guys enjoyed it, let me know down below with a thumbs up, a comment. I'd love to hear from you guys. Always love to hear from you guys. Alright? Thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below, and if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day, everyone.